Hi you guys, it's Tonya Gibbs, and today I want to share with you a mixed media mini album featuring products from Marion Smith Designs. I'm using her Nirvana collection for the paper collection in this. I will put a complete list of the Marion Smith products in the accompanying blog post that is down below the link. The mini album is 6.5 by 8 inches and then 2 inches deep. So it's a really nice size mini album, as you can see from my hands here. I tried to do a process video, but it was just too much. So I do have small tutorial steps in the end of this video that will give you some ideas on some techniques. I've also done quite a few blog posts on certain techniques that were done in this mini album as well. So all of those will be referenced in the blog post that's linked. I covered the mini album with chipboard for the cover and painted it with a vintage photo stain. And then I heat embossed some of Marion's stamps on the cover, and I used seam binding to pull my signatures together. Then on the front, the subject of this cover is the Bloom Impression tool, the rose that I made there, and then I just used some of Marion's ephemera pieces to tuck in, and then some of her junk and gems and resin pieces. I also used her butterfly filigree up in the top. So they really offer a really nice rustic look to this mini album. So on the inside, you can see each one of the signatures is put together using a file folder system, and then I have individual papers on the inside. I sewed them all up the middle, all 3 signatures, and then I poked a hole in the center and ran seam binding in to attach it to the cover. You can kind of see where it's coming together there in the spine. So for this pocket, I heat embossed the rose stamp and then used some watercolor paints. Again, that was a blog post that I did at the beginning of March. And then all of the other pieces that were used in this mini album were either from my scrap pile, or they were individual pieces that were just remnants on my desk from other projects that I've done. So mini albums are a fantastic way to use up all those extra little tiny pieces that are laying around. This piece that I've just pulled out was part of her Digi line. I've got quite a few of her Digi pieces in this mini album. It's a great way to use up those pieces. And then those little clock hands were actually cut with a thin piece of balsa wood. The arrows were from my spellbinder, or my silhouette, and then the word family that you saw there was actually a piece of it was a wood veneer piece that I painted. And then the paper is actually distress stamped. And again, I have a tutorial at the end of this video that shows how I did that. But I really love how grungy it made it look, and I love the gold leafing on this. I've left quite a few places open for me to add some journaling when I decide which pictures I want to put into this album. This tag was actually from Marion's Digi collection, and it was just a remnant that never got used. So I used it there. A lot of these little pieces that you see on these embellishment clusters were actually one-hit wonders left in my stash. I love the way these roses look when they're painted up. They're so gorgeous, and I think that's one of my favorite stamps from Marion. All of my Polaroid frames were left open so I could slide photos underneath. This is actually a crocheted heart that I turned into a pocket, and then I used 7 Gypsies little folder tab there. The Polaroid that I'm pointing to there was actually a Tattered Angels tutorial that I had done on a tag, and I just cut it into a piece for a Polaroid. Then the wooden piece is also a blog post that I did a while back. Again, check out the blog post to find a link to that. That Polaroid happened to be cut from a piece of wood veneer paper, and I stained it with the black soot stain. Again, the pocket that you see there that has the rose on it was sewed to the first signature and then glued to the second signature, and that just kind of helps to keep everything together and gives it some reinforcement. This little feather I dipped with the gold embossing powder, and then this frame was actually a Spellbinder sample that I got from CHA. The hot air balloons were from MFT. So these stamps are part of Marion's collection. Look at how beautiful they look on these edges. It just offers a really nice finished look, and I do love how the watercoloring looks with the gold. Again, this is the second signature and how it comes together. That is the seam binding in the center that pulls through to the spine. And that piece on the right is actually part of Marion's digis, as well as this frame. Again, great way to use them up. And, again, just using up the supplies. That Polaroid there that was on the right was from the Scarlet Digi collection. Just using up those pieces that I had left over from where I'd printed these things out. I find that mini albums are a perfect way to eliminate a lot of these little tiny pieces that you've either cut from scraps or you have in your stash left over. That tag comes out for journaling. That the pocket was a piece of the digis. I left the camera so that I could add a tag there. This piece is actually a booklet that was cut from scrap. The Love You is from Maya Road, and I just opened that up, and the flower it helps to hold it in place. Lots of room in this mini for journaling and things, and you can see where the third signature comes together there. And then the hot air balloon, I do show you how to do that in the end of this video with the tutorial sets. That's from Marion's hot air balloon stamp. And then all of those little tabs that you see at the top that say Journey, those were all part of the paper collection from the Nirvana set. So I love how all these gold pieces just really add to this album. I left open some of these pages without any embellishments because I wanted to be able to add nice size photos there. And you can see how clean this really looks here on this album. So if you're interested in the tutorial snippets, then hang tight, and they're coming up next. If you are leaving us here, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this little mini. I will have some more information on the blog post. So to start with, I have this file folder. It came from this page on the Nirvana paper. That's the family reunion page. So I used that file folder as my guide for cutting out the other file folders. All I did was flip it upside down and make sure my orientation was going right for my tabs, and then used it as a guide to cut out the rest of that page. And then for the center one, all I did was I took my center page and I just lined up one of my cuts for the center, so you can see where I'm using the tab at the top and then lining it up in the middle to know where I need to cut for the middle tab. All of my papers are plain white Georgia Pacific 120-pound cardstock that I have coffee stained with that morning's coffee, and inside the coffee I dropped some Liquitex ink that was gold, so it has a really nice shimmer as a base. And I'm going to pull out all of my Marion Smith Designs stamps, and then I'm going to very irregularly add some Versa ink. I'm not being very particular with it. I want these to look grungy. I'm going to take some Ranger gold embossing powder. This is the Queen's Gold, and I'm just going to add that to it. Now when I heat this up, you're going to have a really nice texture added to these pages. Also, around the edges of these pages, I used my Distress It All to rough up these signatures, and for each one of the signatures I added 2 of these sheets of paper and the file folder, and then there's also a insert added to each signature, and you'll see that as I start flipping through that, and then there's a jacket on the end to help bind it together. So again, I'm just using some of Marion's products or stamps and that gold embossing powder, and I'm just flicking off what I don't want. I want those little splatters to be there. This is perfect if you're stamping challenged like I am. It's a great technique because it really doesn't matter if it's perfect. So now I'm going to move on to the hot air balloon. This hot air balloon's from the Nirvana collection, and it's the Flying High stamp set. I'm going to use a Versa pen to trace around the outline of this hot air balloon. And before I stamp it on, I'm going to use my embossing buddy to just put a little bit of ink on, or a little powder, so that I don't end up with sprays of the embossing powder everywhere. I'm being very careful to trace just around the edges there. If I had stamped this whole stamp with the embossing powder, I would have had to use a lot of the gold. I mean, if I'd have stamped it with the Versa ink, I would have had a lot of gold powder wasted on this. So I wanted this hot air balloon to be open so I could add some journaling or a title or something to it. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the mini album yet, so this was a great way to just do this quickly. And just use your paintbrush, or I had a toothpick, my finger even, to get the residue off the center of that hot air balloon. And then I just took my Versa pen and finished off what didn't get colored before. And again, there you go with a really nice edge to that hot air balloon. And it can easily be decorated and all kinds of fun things done to it this way. So once I heat it up, you can really see the magic. Look at how beautiful that gold looks. I'm so in love with gold right now. So each one of, this is a flip through of the signatures after they've been put together. And you can see how they come together. This is all before I painted anything. It's a good clean book. And then the flap that is there that I'm pulling those tags out of is actually sewed to the first signature but glued to the second signature, so that it kind of helps to hold them together. And then on the next page, or at the end of this signature, you'll see it when we get to it. I love how the gold is so irregular. It doesn't matter if the stamping's perfect or not. It adds character to it to me. So you can see where the last signature's pocket is glued to the middle jacket as well, and that holds all three of them together. And then I was originally going to bind this so that those ends actually went to the cover, but I found that because of the way I cut them with the Spellbinders die, they did not have enough paper there in the center to be able to really be anchored to my covers very well. So here's a nice look of my cover. For more pictures, you can go check out the blog post. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this production.